What is going on, everyone? This is Sheets, and I'm going to be going over UFC Oklahoma from a DFS perspective. Um, we are actually going to be joined by Hatered Guru, founder, CEO, genius, legend, multichem, James McCool, with a very rare appearance in the UFC, MMA, DFS content streets. You haven't really ever. I wanted to ask him what Hader has done with respect to trying to figure this stuff out as well, because it wasn't something that Hader did until pretty recently, and we're gonna get some advice from him and see what we can't figure out. The other thing is that it's possible that I find time to do a betting breakdown in the next day or two. It is not the greatest with respect to being contrarian this week, just because there's not incredible consensus coming in on any few fighters. There are a few spots though. I will if I do a video, I'll go through them, or maybe I'll bring them up as we go along in this breakdown. So all of this is my way of stalling for James to get here, only because, again, I never start late. I never start even 15 seconds late. So when anybody's 30 seconds late, they get left behind. So I guess what I am going to start off with is the overall view of the slate. And it's an important thing to do every single week because you need to know how to approach it. In other words, if you're playing the lottery, which I presume all of us do, I mean, I know I do, you have to know how many chances you're going to have to take, or what type of chances you're going to have to take, how kooky you're going to have to be, how much, nonsense you're going to have to engage in to be competitive for the big prizes. That's really what we're looking to do here. So we have this little checklist of things that we think about in terms of the slate to determine what type of GPP slate it is. Is it one where you can just make the best plays, or is it one where you have to be a kooky brain? We could do either, but we have to know what we're up to. So first consideration is how many fights there are on the slate. And that being 12 this week, it could have been 11 really, but they added a fight, which we're going to talk about, to make it 12. But even at 12, it's pretty light. I mean, I really like 13 as kind of like my baseline of when you have to start, when you can start making normal plays in the lottery. So when you're at 12, you're already in kind of fishy territory. I mean, 11 would have been ridiculous, but in 12, you're already in fishy territory. So already we're talking about a card where it's probably a C. Now, when I say a C, I mean with respect to just being able to make good plays. It still could be a good card, but DFS-wise, but you're going to have to just be kind of funkier. Now, the next consideration is there a fight or fights or is there a fighter which is just a lock? In other words, is there a guy who, for whatever reason, either line movement or a new salary for a replacement fighter, has become kind of unfadable? And that would actually be very, very negative from a GPP perspective. And the answer this week is no. Asterisk. Like, there's one we're going to talk about, which is kind of weird. Like, one guy's taking a ton of money. It's not at the point where it's you're getting like a $7,400 fighter who's like a 3-1 favorite, which happens sometimes. But we're going to talk about that. So we're good there. The next consideration is there a fight which can't be faded. Now that is kind of like 1A, 1B. So usually what that is asking is the main event unfadable. Okay. And with respect to that, when we get to it, we'll get to it. I would say that the main event, while it's not unfadable, it's rough. It's going to be rough to fade it. We'll get there when we get there, but I mean, if Usman wins, you're not keeping him out of the optimal. If Duplessis wins, you got a shot. Okay, like there are variations where Duplessis wins and is not optimal. So I guess, yeah, you could fade it. It's not easy, but you could. So that's sort of positive. But the other thing is there a fight besides that, which is kind of unfadeable? And the way I look at that is I kind of think about it in terms of the it's like, is it a Terrence McKinney fight? Like, is it a fight where you have two guys around 8,200 or 8K where you don't know who's going to win, but whoever it is just going to smash? And in which case you have to play that fight. I would say this week the answer is no. I mean, there are a couple of good ones, but there's no just like incredible lock like McKinney type situation. Okay. There are a couple we'll get to, but not in that form. Okay. Okay. So I would say then, given that, I would give this, there's James. I would give this card a solid C+. Okay. Maybe it's not a C because the main event is you could fade it. And there's not a great amount. There's not a lock fight or anything like that. So aside from that, we are a good solid C+, which just means that doesn't mean you can't play. It just means that you just, you're going to have to get funky, and, and I'm down with it. That's totally okay. So I gave a little bit of an intro, James, in that, we haven't really talked about this stuff a lot, if at all. And it's a good idea to kind of catch up to see where Pater is with respect to UFC stuff, because it's I want to share something with you guys. Like, this is I don't really share this almost like ever, but I just want to show you like what goes on like in the industry. Now, I'm not gonna say who these sites are, but I like track everybody. Okay, and just to kind of see like the wild difference you'll get like in projections all over the place. Now, again, everybody's missing a fight here. No one's projected the additional fight yet. And there's a couple of issues, like this one site didn't spell a guy right and all this stuff. But like you can even see like, you take even like the top guy like Duplessis. We have like projections ranging anywhere from 67 up to like 112. Okay. And so the thing is that every site has their own kind of way of doing things. Like some sites just predict like kind of like if-win scenarios. Others, I legitimately, without getting into names, have no idea what they're doing. I mean, like some of them are just literally just have no clue. And then even some of the sim products that come up with like simulated like fight sims, they get stuff wrong too. The only thing I would say, though, is that, as long as a site, now, again, we'll get into Pater and stuff, but as long as a site is at least consistent within itself, like with its scaling, I guess, and I don't really mind if they give, say, XYZ a certain, like, even like, let's just say that I thought Duplessis was like really low at 67, which obviously this site is smoking, right, with Duplessis with this low of a projection. But as long as it at least scales right between like the lowest and the highest, at least I'll survive or whatever. But what I will say is that if you do subscribe to different sites, I think the worst thing you could do is stuff like average them. You're dealing with like different scales and different animals. So you're almost better off going with like a bad site that at least has them scaled right than like even like the combination of three good sites that are scaling things a little bit differently. That's the one thing that I would say. The other thing I would say is that when it comes to UFC, median projections in general don't nearly tell the story because of that thing I just mentioned earlier when I was talking about fights. So like if you have a fight where you have an $8,100 fighter on both sides, for example, and let's say they're both even money to win, but the even money, but whoever wins is getting like 100 points. Their medians are not going to be that high, but one of them is going to be in the optimal. You know what I mean? So in a way, you have to be a decent hand builder, sort of, and you have to be able to tweak this stuff, and you have to be able to deal with this. And even like, and I'll use SaberSim straight up as an example. SaberSim and Sims, all the sim products, they have not figured that out yet. Okay, they and this is a very important thing. Like if you just literally run like SaberSim, for example, and just run what they tell you, that whatever, you're not going to get enough of those key fights. You just never are. So that's a little bit of advice to you guys if you want to just kind of like, if you've used those types of products and you want to do that, that's you have to just upgrade that kind of thing. Now I'm going to get into these fights and we'll go one by one or whatever. And this is, by the way, this is one of those like cool sports where I love kind of making my own sort of projections based on my own concept of the numbers and things like that. Because then I'll run my builds, and then I will then manually say, you know what, I want X. I'm gonna want to be jamming in like this key fight, or something like that. Why don't we before we talk about the fights, talk about some of the work that you've done, like with Pater, and listen, you never did projections of this before, so like, tell us a little bit about how you're going about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of approach it the same way that I approach PGA. I think that both sports, it can be really, really hard to project out individual statistics. We don't have consistent metrics to use in MMA in terms of significant strikes and punches and like all that kind of stuff, right? Like baseline stuff. It's not near as good and consistent and usable as something like MLB, for instance, which is like the complete opposite side of that, right? Yeah. Like MLB, we have all of the data we possibly use to project out performance for any player for any kind of sequence that we want. MMA is on the other side of that, where yes, we have some data and there's some trusted sources that do the best job they can, but I would compare it more to maybe the sources that we have for Counter-Strike. Whereas we have hltv.org for Counter-Strike, which is good and fine, but it's lacking a lot in terms of the depth of analytics that we could utilize to project out Counter-Strike. So for MMA, I approach it the same way that I do for PGA, where both sports have pretty wide swings on the outcomes. Medians don't really matter all that much. And the way that you are scaling your floor to ceiling distribution is more based on the probability of a win, right? And a win in MMA means a lot more than a win in PGA. Yeah. Whereas, if you win in PGA, you're probably optimal. If you win in MMA, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's how you win in MMA. So there's differences in those kinds of things. And the way that I went about it was I used a lot of top-down modeling, and I utilized money lines and other like individual outcome baselines, and then ran those through some algorithms to find the weighting that I needed for each one of them, and then applied those against fighters. And then, crucially, speaking of scaling, I did not just leave it at that, right? Like the models are not just a weighted distribution of the odds for a fighter to win by X, Y, or Z, right? I then also went through and looked at what the scale is historically for MMA fighters and applied that scale against the projections, which is why when you speak to scale, you'll notice that Pater's scale is very consistent every single week. You're usually going to have a fighter down in like the 25 to 35 range. You're usually going to have a fighter projected somewhere in the 110 to 120 range. And that's just because that's the scale historically of what we deal with in terms of MMA outcomes. So it's a combination of both projecting out performance as well as fitting to a historical baseline and a historical range for what we expect MMA fighters to land in. And so what that'll end up giving you is medians that are consistent and reliable. Now, speaking again to what you had mentioned between median and ceiling, I'm going to share my screen really quick just so that people who are not subscribers can see what you mean by that kind of stuff. So when you go and use the range of outcomes over at Pater, obviously the medians matter, but what I also think is really important is these floor to ceiling distributions. Duplessis has the highest median at 111, but he does not have the highest ceiling. Adrian Correa has the highest ceiling at 149. However, he also has one of the lower floors of the expensive guys. So like you can see these distributions here, there's very clearly a wider distribution here for Correa between 59 and 149. He's the highest range of outcomes fighter on this card. Whereas somebody like Barbosa has a median of 81, which is, pretty low, but also a really high floor, which leads to a really low ceiling. The outcome here is likely to be centered around this median because the distribution is very short. If they win, it's likely not going to be by some explosive thing. They're probably not going to win by a first-round knockout. They're probably not going to win by TKO. It's probably going to decision. So these distributions are really important. The distributions then also feed into things like the top percentages, top three, the 10x rates, GPP rates, stuff like that. You can see that like Usman at 7,200 has one of the higher GPP percentages and a pretty good 10x rate because he's in this main event fight, right? So we're going to have a higher distribution here and a higher chance of finding a ceiling. So breaking it down this way, I think is important. Being able to sort things by like 11x rate, which makes it so that like it's very clear that we probably shouldn't be using like Hooper in all that many lineups. At 9,200, he has a pretty short distribution, decent ceiling, but pretty short distribution. All of this kind of stuff really matters when it comes down to it.
So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go through the fights the way I normally do, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause after each of the fights and get your take based on your data on what you would how you would analyze it. And again, and something you just mentioned about like Hooper, for example, you wouldn't use here because of this. I mean, there are certain different contests that require different approaches. Like I'll give you an example. Right. Like this week, in addition to my normal lot or my normal distribution of contests, I'm actually in round 2 of the MMA Live final qualifiers, where I got down to the final 50, and now 50 gets reduced to 15, which is a very weird thing. You know what I mean? Like it's not exactly cash, but it's not exactly playing for first either. So I imagine that there's like a kind of a sweet spot of type of guy that I'm probably going to want in something like that. I'll be curious to get your take on because I'm struggling with this one. You know what I mean? I really am. I've been going back and forth in a lot of different variations. So first things first. First, I do want to talk about the fight which hasn't been analyzed yet. And that is Damian Anderson versus Ezra Elliott. So first things first. First thing that very few people know about about UFC pricing is that DraftKings really almost never, I've only seen it once, they never put the same fighters, more than one fighter at the same price. They always have somebody in unique pricing. So when this got released, there's really only 2 places this one could go. This could go either 8,500, 7,700, and it's going to come out today, I imagine, or 8,100, 8,100. And because of the money line, it's pretty clear to me it's going to be 8,500, 7,700. So everybody be on the lookout for that, right? So the other thing that we don't have yet is any real prop, with the exception of this over under 1.5, which is actually pretty aggressive. Like this is an over under 1.5 at like almost a pick 'em, is a very, very aggressive, like the fight could finish type of thing. Plus, considering that both of these guys are grapplers and they can get points that way, this right out of the gate is going to be a pretty cool, important fight to target, because the metrics are, number one, the metrics are going to look good. Number 2, you're going to get good grappling upside, which is going to not really factor into the match. And number 3, because the fight hasn't been announced till now, it hasn't been analyzed. So it could get ignored a little bit that way. So you haven't said anything about, we're not going to even talk about, I'm just telling you guys in advance that this fight is probably going to be pretty good. All right, so let's start with Anna Crutchfield versus Deanne Barbosa. So again, the way I like to look at these again is first we start with the pricing. So you have Barbosa being 9,400. Well, actually, what's the fight? It's so funny. They have a different fight orders here. No, they have it right. So Barbosa's 9,400. So for me, usually 9,400 for that to be a good play. 9,400 is a lot. I mean, you usually need to have an inside the distance line of -110 at least, plus like some grappling upside. Okay, you can't really just get away with either. Or maybe an inside the distance line of -160. So for her to be a quote unquote good play 9,400, she's got to have an inside the distance line of -110 plus grappling upside. And according to the metrics, it's actually pretty close. Like her inside the distance line, if you look here, it's it is -110, which is pretty close. And she does have submissions. So she does have grappling upside. And the opponent, Melisano, she actually just came off of getting subbed in the Contender Series. So right out of the gate, I think that Barbosa is going to be very, very strong play. Now, if you go through other fighters, she might get eclipsed. But right now, I think that Barbosa is going to look like a very, very strong play. And with respect to Melisano on the other side, and you're going to hear this from me a lot, I just don't think that she wins often enough. Like if you have someone who's plus 500 to win, that means she's going to win the fight 15% of the time. The only time I'll ever really do that is if the opponent is going to be so chalky that you get just like incredible leverage that 15% winning chance is good enough. Aside from that, for me, I think Barbosa actually looks like a really good play in the way I look at things, and probably not going to get to too much Anna. What are your models? What are you seeing in this with this one?
So it's hard with somebody like Barbosa. A high price means that I really want to look for the model. Really wants to look for inside the distance, and while her odds are decent, historically she has not been incredible in terms of high upside. And when we look at the odds that are being offered up on her, the money line is fine, the draw is low. Average wins are high. The inside the distance at 112 is fine. Like, I just don't see a huge ceiling here. The models see her as a good floor play. Floor of 71 is strong. Like I showed in the model, she's one of the fighters that has the strongest floor, just a relatively low ceiling. So sticking to what you had said before about you being in this next round of the MMA Live final, like, she seems like a decent play for a contest like that. Right? Like, she's probably not going to kill you one way or another, but she also likely won't be the reason why you win. I think she's probably a better cash game play than someone like Coria, like I had said, who has a much wider range of outcomes, but I wouldn't be looking to use her over the field by any means in larger contests or the lotto.
I couldn't agree with that more. And I thought about that specifically for this particular contest. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of down with that. Yeah. So I agree. We'll come to a consensus. I think she's a good play. She's going to win the fight 60. She's -600. You know what I mean? So she's a good floor play. Remember, in 11 fights, it's hard to get too much. Right. So I kind of agree. All right, let's move on to this next one. This is Hines versus RJ Harris, and these are heavyweights. And we look at the inside the distance line here. Well, first let's take a look at the pricing. You have 8,400 versus 7,800, and this is going to be a very, very good fight with respect to metrics. So let's take a look. Not great, but I think really good. Yeah. So you have Hines inside the distance, VIG adjusted is +170. That's actually not as good as I thought it was going to be. So he's actually kind of average to okay for his price. And actually, I thought Harris was going to look a little bit better inside also. So +230. So this, when I was first looking at it during the week, I thought it was going to be like kind of a smash. You have to play these sloppy heavyweights. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's just okay. Like, listen, Hines 8,400 minus +160, 170. That's good. And so far, it's obviously they're only through 2 fights. But is Hines, for example, going to be better? Again, I don't have these. We don't even have pricing yet on somebody like in the Anderson fight that was just added. We have to see what those numbers look like. But I think Hines is good. I'm curious to see what your ranges of outcomes like. think of both these guys?
Yeah, so let me pull those up here. Okay, so Hines and Harris are both kind of like middling plays, all things considered. Okay. There's just not that great of range in terms of the inside the finish rates, and like you had said, they're both, you know, they're plus money to really do anything that is necessary for you to win. 7,800, the models like Harris a bit more. Ceiling of 90 is fine here. But I mean, they're flyer plays, right? I mean, both of them are projected to be lower owned as of right now. I don't think either one of them is going to get you a whole bunch of ownership like spread around. So I think they're fine as flyers, but I don't think they need to be a focus. I think you're probably more focused on, like you said, that rookie fight, right? Those guys are probably going to be better because they have more unknowns about them. They have higher ceilings. And likely the same ownership range. Do you think the rookie's going to be owned? I don't think so.
Which one?
The rookies.
No, I don't.
No, I don't think they'll be owned. So I probably would prefer that side rather than this fight.
I have to ask. I mean, again, these could change, but I looked at like the. I mean, again, you don't just look at medians, but I see you have Harris like a huge number relative to even Hines. I've learned to not ask why, like a model does what it does. I just figured I'd point that out.
Well, I have them projected 3 points differently.
Oh, that was it? Okay. Yeah. My bad then. My bad.
Yeah, I have it basically a coin flip. And the ceilings, again, are only 3 points difference. Basically, the model doesn't see any reason to think that either one of these fighters has like a huge ceiling compared to one another. It's a coin flip spot. They're priced as a coin flip spot. So flip a coin, right? So,
okay. So you mentioned this Correa thing for a second. So here's something that I've talked about a lot before. So for me, and this is kind of a weird take, but for me, if you're 9,800, you never get played no matter who you are. And that's the way pricing works. That's the way DFS salary cap distribution of salaries just work for me. Like if you told me that the guy was going to get a first round knockout, I still wouldn't play him. You know, it's just too hard to fill in good lineups when you have 9,800 destroyed. Now, the only time that you could do this, as far as I'm concerned, is when you have kind of like lock underdogs. Like if you have like a $7,300 underdog that's like a 2-1 favorite because of a replacement fighter or something, then you can get the 9,800. But for 9,800 to get in your lineup, you're going to need like multiple 7K guys. Yeah. That's multiple play plus 250, 300 favorites to get there. So I don't even care what his metrics are. I wouldn't play him anyway. And given that, his metrics stink. You know, like for a $9,800 fighter, I mean, he doesn't even have he's inside the distance line is fine. It's minus 150. But what are you going to do? I mean, he needs to have to pay this off. Look at this. He's plus 220 in the first round. Mm-hmm. And a first round win doesn't even guarantee him the optimal, does he? You know, so for me, I mean, if I get to him, it's only going to be because some sim thing made me. You know what I mean? Like, There's no way I'm intentionally putting Alvin Correa in any build. Not even even if you guarantee me the win, and even in my qualifier, I just can't get to that. So that's my case. And because I think that people are going to agree with it. I don't think people are going to play Correa at this price, honestly. Like, I think maybe he gets 25% just because, of his safety. And because of that, I can't play Nicole because he doesn't win often enough for me to justify him.
Right. Yeah, models love Correa's ceiling. That's the thing that they love about him. It's a really wide range. He's the fighter with the widest range by a long shot. His floor is lower than Usman and Barbosa. I mean, it's literally lower than a fighter who's $2,600 less. As far as floors, he has a floor of. I'll just go into here really quick.
What's his floor, like 90?
His floor is 60.
Okay.
Because he's going to be going for it, right? Like, he's probably going to get a knockout here, just because that's how he usually acts. So his median is good, but his floor is really low, and if he messes up, then he's gonna have a low floor, but he has a really high ceiling. That said, for 9,800, having about the same floor as a 6,800 fighter, 8,200, 7,200, like that's a really low floor. It's hard to justify. If he's gonna get less ownership, I think he's a better play. Like if he's on the wrong side of 20%, like lower than 20%, I think he's a good play. But that'll be a card slip thing because right now I have him projected 20 to 25%. So I think he's going to be about correctly owned. He is not a play for you in the MMA live fund. No. You don't touch him.
Felipe Franco versus Levy Rodriguez. So the big narrative here is that Levy Rodriguez, he's coming off of he got popped for drugs or whatever it is, and both these guys had this weird MMA thing. They both fought the same guy. Neither of them were particularly good. But let's just take a look at the metrics here. So it's 8,600 versus 7,600. So if I'm going to want to play Rodriguez just on the metrics, you usually need to have, again, about a plus 150, 160 inside the distance line to make it worth it. And him inside the distance is minus 115, which is extraordinarily strong. So he is going to show up as a very, very good play here.
Yes.
Now, with that said, because he's going to show up as a good play, probably going to get owned. That's just the way it goes. Mm-hmm. And as a result, you really have to consider Franco in GPPs. And part of it is because his style is pretty grappling heavy. So if in fact he does get the win, he's probably going to score extremely well. So I like both sides of this fight. Rodriguez is obviously a very, very elite play here. I'd like to play him if I could in my qualifier. I also might end up having to play Franco in my qualifier. I don't know. I have to really think about it. What are you seeing as far as your numbers here?
Rodriguez looks like a good play. Relatively low ceiling or relatively low floor, but pretty good median. Projects for about 87. Franco is lower just because he's on the wrong side of that fight. Yeah. But I think that when it comes to ownership, Franco should be 5 to 10% owned. I don't think he's going to have much ownership, so he's a good flyer. Like you had mentioned, the odds are really, really nice for Rodriguez. He's sitting there kind of between Hooper and Delgado. So I think he's appropriately priced. He has a good ceiling. He's appropriately priced. I think he's fine.
This next fight, I'm very curious to see where your models come in on this one, because I mean, as far as just straight up analysis, what you have here is Xiang Heko, who's really shown out in the last couple of fights, and also his contenders fight too, as he's shown out as a very, very, very good grappler, and just a very good high IQ fighter. He doesn't really go for huge scores, but he's very well within himself, and he seems like a very, very safe type option here. I mean, he's minus 200. He's going to be going for takedowns. You know, he's the exact type of guy that you want to play if you can in kind of low risk stuff. The other guy's a little bit more of a, I don't say leverage play, whatever it is, but a little bit, listen, he's plus 170, doesn't really have too much upside, at least on my numbers. So for me, it feels like Ko is going to would be like a high median, low ceiling type of guy, but I'm curious to see what your models say about that.
No, that's exactly right. Good median. Median's 95. It's the 6th best median on the slate. Really strong floor. Floor is at 71-ish. 4th best floor on the slate. He's a good play. I think especially for the price, 8,800 is kind of a sweet spot when we consider building from MMA. You want somebody around that 9K range to be your flyer, to be your sweeper. So I will also say that JPL, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but his
me neither. Don't worry about it.
His projection actually isn't bad.
Okay.
I could see he projects for about 69. 7,400 is a decent price tag. Yeah. I think if you're looking for somebody in that lower 7K range, you're kind of making a decision between him and Usman or both of them. So I think there's ways to play either side of this. Obviously, Ko is going to be a better play just by the numbers, but I actually think from a from a standpoint of GPP plays for the lower dollar guys, JPL is not that bad.
So these next two fights are the two holy wars of the card with respect to the Twitter sphere, with respect to the MMA sphere, with respect to getting them right. They've caused the most stress among the people arguing, and then what's this, the other thing. So let's talk about this. So you have Jose Delgado versus Austin Bashi. You have, a mid-range fight, which again, these are pretty important to play and pretty important to get right. And it's an extraordinarily easy fight to analyze from just a visual perspective. You have Jose Delgado, who has clearly the better striking, and you have Austin Bashi, who has clearly the better wrestling. And one is going to go for the wrestling, and if Jose Delgado can fend off the takedowns, he's going to win. And if he cannot, then Bashi's going to win. And if Bashi wins, getting a billion takedowns, he's going to score through the roof. All right? And if Delgado wins, you look at his inside the distance line here. His inside distance line at his price is extraordinarily strong. It's like it's actually, I shouldn't say that. I thought it was stronger than it was. So it's plus 220 at his price. That's just kind of okay. It's good, but it's not great. Like, you compare that to Rodriguez, who's just a couple $100 more, who's minus 110. So Bashi is like clearly like the DFS type play, and Delgado is like kind of like the people like bet on the sport. They like him a little bit more. So I may have to just pick one of these guys. So I'm just curious what your models say about this fight.
Models prefer Delgado, but both of them are kind of right there. From a price standpoint, the pricing makes sense. 8,300 for Delgado, I think, is maybe a little bit too cheap. Bashi at 7,900 is maybe a little bit too expensive. I would probably say 85 and 77 would be where I would think that they would be accurately, I guess. But models have it leaning towards Delgado. He has a median of 84, which is relatively strong, a ceiling of 109. When you look at the models and you look at ceilings, Delgado is very clearly like the cliff. So these are all the guys that have like good ceilings, and Delgado is the last guy before you really drop down in terms of the ceilings. Another thing about MMA, obviously, for people who have not played much of it, it's very bifurcated. So when you model it out, the way that I built out the models is using a bimodal distribution. And so what you're going to end up having is a cliff, as I call it in the projections, where there's guys who have ceilings and there's guys who don't. And that doesn't mean, like, obviously, if Usman wins, then like his ceiling is, it's going to be higher. But from a bimodal standpoint, this is where his ceiling median lies. Delgado is a bit higher than him at 8,300. Delgado is a really good play. What do you think his ownership ends up being? Because that's the question.
I think both those guys are going to be like 25 to 30%.
Okay, yeah, I would play him at 25. I'd play him. Whichever one is the lower owned one is the one that you want.
Well, Delgado's definitely be the lower owned, I think.
Okay, then yeah, I think Delgado is the better play. He's gonna have a better projection. He's got kind of like a more, he's got a more explosive way to win. Whereas like Bashi, if he ends up winning, you're right, he's gonna get a million takedowns, and that's gonna be a big score. But if Delgado wins, it's gonna be because it goes against what Bashi wants to do, and Bashi has to be consistent. So I think Delgado's the better player.
So here's the deal. So Tommy McMillan versus Alberto Montas. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling this was going to happen, and this is exactly what happened. So it's 8,200 8K, and this has been the Holy War, and apparently Tommy McMillan has won the Holy War because he's gotten just steamed like the last couple of days, actually, all the way up to like minus 150 in some places. Okay. So what you're going to see is if you run anything through optimizers, Tommy McMillan is just going to have to look like a really good play because he's only 200 at minus 150. Okay. Now we'll look at this. Well, let's take a look at the metrics here. I have a feeling his inside the distance line is kind of just good enough as well. Let's see. Yeah, McMillan inside at plus 140 at 8,200. That's a really, really great play, and now you have Montes, his inside at plus 240. It makes him kind of a pretty poor play. Now, what I will say is that in GPPs, this Montez play is the one you're just going to have to make, like in the lottery. I mean, you're just getting way too much leverage here to not play him. And I'll tell you something else you can do. And this is a neat little trick. Okay. Like if you're on a 12 fight card and you need to get different, without getting too different, again, this is going to be pretty cool, is you do all of your builds. Okay. Just build whatever you want. And then what you do is any lineup that you have with Tommy McMillan, you swap that to Montez. Okay. And the reason for that is that if someone has 8,200 available to play and all they have left is McMillan and Montez, right, the optimizers are going to jam McMillan, just the way it goes. So Montez, even though he's probably an okay play, like he's going to be like 5% owned in lineups with 8,200 left. You know what I mean? So that's one way to be kind of sneaky different. The only caution, now again, it doesn't really apply this week, but people used to get, I talked about that when I was True DFS all the time. People went bananas with this, but you have to make sure that when you intentionally leave the 200 like that you're not like giving up some like wildly amazing play because of it. Like, let's just say that because you gave up the 200, you can't get from, say, I don't know, Co to Duplessis. Like, for example, like if you happen to have thought that Duplessis is a lock, and I mean, you don't want to just to be a pain in the ass and save the 200, give that. So, but there are other things you could do with that. Then you could search for lineups that already have, say, Duplessis in it, and then you want lines with Duplessis and McMillan. Then you swap those to Montas.
Okay.
Then you go to 200, yep, whatever. So there's shit you can do.
Let's do that really quick, right? So let's go into the portfolio manager. Let's lock McMillan
and Duplessis.
Yeah. Right? Okay. We got 170 lineups here, right? And then let's go down here and do conditionals. Actually, let's do exposure.
I don't think you're going to be able to do what I want you to do, but go ahead.
Let's see, where is McMillan here? There he is. McMillan, down to 0. And we're going to have a specific replacement of...
Oh, you could do that. Oh, sick.
Can. Yep. Who is it? It's Montez, right?
Yep.
Let me find him here. There he is. And do Montez. And then do that. Oops. Well, you should be able to do that. I'll work on that.
So
the way that you would want to do it is do, let's see, McMillan.
You could also obviously at a CSV do cut and find and replace.
Yeah. But yeah, we want to do it this way.
Yeah.
There you go. So then when you analyze, now we have all this Montez. And then we can come up here and we can, here's all of your lineups with those guys both.
So now what you've now done though, right? So here's another thing you can do. So if you do that, now you will have no lineups with Duplessis and McMillan together. Okay. So then what you can do is you can rebuild more with McMillan and them together, but then go back to that original group and only play lineups with those two together that have, say, projections for dupes less than 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or really make sure that those are the low owned, lower owned.
What I was thinking of doing was taking this and saying, okay, so now give me a stratification based on weighted ownership. Give me like 150 lineups of the highest owned lineups, right? So I'm going to go like sample range here. So these are only lineups that have the highest ownership.
The highest ownership. Okay.
Yeah. And then, so apply that stratification. So here's 150 high owned lineups, right? And then come down here.
Then you can just swap out all the McMillan for the Montez, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So then we say, okay, yeah, we had 74% of him. we're going to get rid of all of that and give me my Montes.
Love it. Love it.
And so now all the lineups, they're high owned, right? They're low volatility.
Yep. That had McMillan, now go to Montes.
And then you swap in your Montes.
Love it.
And then you end up with a whole bunch of Montes in really high owned lineups, and that's how you get your leverage.
That's right. Because they're not high owned anymore.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. All right. Okay, moving on. Fatima Klein versus Tabitha Ricci. Okay. So Fatima Klein, she's 9,300. Now again, for 9,300, you're gonna want minus 110 and probably some grappling upside. I doubt that she has it. We're gonna take another look. Yeah, I mean, Klein is not much of a finisher here. She's like plus 400 inside, so she is just not gonna be a GPP type play. And because of that, Ricci probably is not great leverage, and that she only wins the fight 20% of the time. That's not going to be kind of good enough. So for me, this fight is probably pretty much of a fade. What do you think about this one? Or what do your models think about this one?
Klein has a really good floor. Klein has the second best floor on the slate, right behind Duplessis.
Okay.
At 76.75. The median is 101. Which is the third best median.
Wow. Okay.
So Klein looks like a really strong pay up option from a cash game standpoint.
Right.
I think that probably, like you said, lower floor, but there's a very good chance she wins. There's a very good chance that she has control of the fight. So strong floor play.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, like, if it comes down to, we'll get to there, but if it comes down to me needing $300, would you think I could swap Barbosa for Klein?
Oh, yeah.
You think so?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's big. That'll be big, actually.
Yeah. I mean, Klein has a better median and a better floor. Like, I would heavily lean Klein.
Well, let's just see what this is going to look like here. Let's put this in here. We'll come back to this in a minute.
Also, I know the mistake that I made in the portfolio manager when I was doing that swap.
Oh. You can retake over if you want. Yeah.
So what I had done was when I went up here into the micro filters, I had locked both Duplessis and McMillan. So when I tried to swap out McMillan, it removed all the lineups. So if we just lock Duplessis, and we have 375 lineups here, and then we take McMillan down to 0 and replace him with Montes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Then you're fine. And we can do that here. And then, now we end up with obviously 100% Duplessis and 73% Montes. And then you can do, whatever else things you want to do. The other thing that you can do also, like, here's all the lineups with Duplessis and Montes. And if you wanted to, you could just say, okay, well, I'm going to split my diversity, but my distribution between them. I'm going to do, say you had 100 lineups, you do 50 lineups here and add this into the export base, right?
Right.
So we can just go. We're going to not add all these into the export base. I guess we just download those lineups, and then we could then reset this, right? And then say, okay, cool. Then we're going to, again, lock Duplessis. And now we're going to say, from an exposure standpoint, we're going to find all of our Montes, and we're going to try to replace him with McMillan. Oops. There we go. And then we take, again, then we're going to stratify on that for 50 lineups. Apply that, and then download that, right? And then we have two different ones. We have 100 lineups, half of them splitting our exposure between the two with Duplessis. Obviously, you probably don't want 100% Duplessis, whatever. But just to show that if you wanted to split up your distribution there, that's how you could do it.
Okay, moving on, we have now. I'm a little nervous here because you talked about this already. So Chase Hooper versus Mitch Ramirez. So in the true way to analyze this, okay, you have Hooper is only he's 9,200, which means he needs to have the traditional way of looking at it, an inside distance line of -110, and maybe not even need like grappling, but he's got it all here. Like he has not only like he's minus 120 inside and he has grappling upside. Like he, just so you know, like in GPPs, the exception of Duplessis, he's going to be the most popular favorite on the slate, like by a shit ton. Okay, now Ramirez is getting like some kind of like contrarian like betting love because Hooper just seems to want to get knocked out in the first round, like when he doesn't win. So I think Ramirez is kind of a very obvious, in a way, like GPP play in lotteries or something like that. I don't know if I could do somebody like Ramirez in my qualifier or whatever, because it's just too likely he gets 0 points, whatever, or gets wrapped up early. But so you were mentioning that Hooper, the way you're looking at it, shouldn't be played, but is weaker than some of these others. And explain to me why that is.
So his floor is weaker. His ceiling is fourth best on the slate.
Right.
Like, he's still fine. When you look at the projections for all of these guys, I have this sorted by ceiling right now.
Okay.
Hooper is still fine. It's just that his floor is so low. He's right there with Coria. Coria obviously more expensive, $600 more expensive, but both of those guys have just a really wide range of outcomes. I really like Ramirez as a GPP play at $7K.
Yep.
That's a really, really strong option when you're considering such a wide distribution here. The same thing with Nickel. Both of them project very badly, but for 6,400, if you're not playing Coria, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't take a flyer on Stuart. Nickel, however the fuck you pronounce it. Like either one of these guys. Also, I was going to note that since you currently in your lineup do not have Barbosa, it would make sense to take a flyer on Melisano at 6,800. That would give you 50K on your lineup instead of plugging in Hooper. So, I think Hooper is fine in larger field stuff, but I'm not going to play him in small field. I'm not going to play him in anything that is sensitive to such a wide range of outcomes fighter.
Well, if you're gonna give me authority to play Melisano, then
I think he's fine.
Then we're in business, because we'll get there. So we have 2 fights left. Duncan Cannonier and Duplessis Usman, and we're gonna get to this, but both these underdogs could slide into this lineup. Anyway, let's talk about it. So first, Christian Leroy Duncan versus Jared Cannonier. He's a 9,100 versus 7,100, and Christian Leroy Duncan really disappointed last time out, as from a DFS perspective. Like, people really thought he was going to give Delice a beating. And he was kind of low volume. He was kind of not very aggressive. He put up a very, very pedestrian score of like under 70, I think, as a pretty big favorite. And I mean, his inside the distance line this week is kind of poor. It's like plus 170. I mean, as far as I'm seeing, I don't want to play this at all. Especially in GPPs. Cannonier's 42. I don't know how much I want to play him, though. So, I mean, what do you think of this fight?
It's fine. They're priced appropriately. This is just a really kind of like, it's fine.
Okay, all right, wait. Compare Christian Leroy Duncan to, say, Klein.
Okay. So it's basically the same ceiling. Leroy Duncan has a lower floor and a lower median, basically the same ceiling. Like, I'd just rather play Klein. I'd rather play Klein at 9,300. It would be different if Duncan was like 88, 89, if he was a little underpriced, but I think 91 is like perfect pricing for him here.
Okay, main event, Dricus Duplessis versus Kamaru Usman. So probably the highest owned fighter on the slate is going to be Duplessis, except it's possible that Usman might be also. Usman is only a minus 220 underdog, and he's got 5 rounds and takedown upside and all of this stuff. Both these guys are gonna get jammed. And depending on how much risk you want to take, it's definitely a fight that in cash you're gonna want to play, if not both, at least one of them.
Right.
And I'll tell you that if this were round 1 of my qualifier where you only had to go 50-50, I would be stacking this fight 100% of the time. I mean, I would play both these guys. I think that it's very likely to go the distance. Not likely, but I think it's got a good enough chance to go the distance that both these guys can score okay. I don't think Duplessis is going to wipe him up in the first round. I mean, nobody beats him in the first round. I mean, Chimaev went to decision with him. You know what I mean? Usman's he's an animal. So for me, I mean, in my qualifier, I'm gonna find it difficult to not play Usman, to tell you the truth. Just to save the money and God forbid he gets a couple of takedowns and God forbid he wins. I mean, the guy's gonna score a freaking ton. So
yeah.
It's both these guys are great plays, and whether you play them in your lottery really depends exclusively on what else you have in your lineup.
Right.
I don't think that you could get away with, for example, playing either of these guys with McMillan and Hooper, for example, and not get duped through the roof. So they're both good plays, and they're both probably susceptible. I would say to getting to not being the optimal. That puts you another way. If Usman wins, I think it's very difficult to keep him off the optimal. I think it's very hard. I mean, his style, everything, his price, whatever. Duplessis does have variations where he wins and doesn't get there. Third round finish might not get there. Decision where he spends 2 rounds on his back but comes back in the last couple of rounds and gets a decision at 85, 90 points. That doesn't get there. So I think that Usman is more of a lock if he wins, which is only 33% of the time. So I think they're both good plays. What is your models? What do you think of a situation like this?
I think I lean your way. The models are obviously going to like Duplessis more.
Yep.
He just has much better metrics. He has much better expectations. He has much better lines. The price on Duplessis is hard to ignore, right? When you're looking at the way that this was priced, having him at 9K makes it really difficult to get away from it.
Yeah.
His medians, the way that you project out, like you said, when you use an optimizer, you're just going to get a lot of him. Now, granted, in the portfolio manager, I'm only getting 37% on a dry run.
Well, because you're getting all the Usman, right? I'm presuming.
Well, and I also get 37% of Usman. Right. So there's only
that's actually going to be, I think, under. I think that the sum of the ownership of these guys could really approach 90%.
I think it'll be 90. Yeah, I think because I always use your ownership as a way to
it's a short slate. I mean, it's a.
So when your ownership is in, I'm going to guess that both of these guys end up
42, 45, maybe
something like that. Yeah, it's going to be something like that. So, this is, I think that this fight and the McMillan fight are where you're splitting your portfolio's. And obviously it's lineups over players, right? Like we're playing DFS.
And don't forget the rookies.
And the rookies, right? Yeah. But I think that this one, whatever side you want to go on, I think you're right that Usman at 7,200, if he wins, he will be optimal. Yeah. Very high chance of him being optimal. So you have to break it down from an EV perspective, right? At 33% of the time that he wins,
yeah,
within those 33%, 90% of the time,
so 30%. So 30% he's optimal, but he could be owned 40% of the time.
Right? Yeah, he's gonna be a bit quote unquote overowned just based off of that. But if we consider the EV prospect of both of them, right? Let's break it down. if 90% of the time during his 33% of the time wins, he is optimal.
Yeah.
What is it for Duplessis at 9K when he wins his 66% of the time?
It's worse. I think
it's considerably worse, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because of the price prospect and because we have Hooper, we have McMillan, we have Correa, right? Correa has the highest ceiling on the slate. So of all the $7,200 fighters, let's say $7K to $7,500 fighters, are there any that outscore Usman if he wins?
Oh, for sure. We got Ramirez can knock out Hooper in the first round.
Okay, so there's one.
And get all the leverage on the Hooper.
So there's one, right?
That's it pretty much, I think.
But there's 5 guys around Duplessis that
that's right.
can outscore him even if Duplessis wins.
That's right. That's right.
So I think you're right that Usman, from an EV perspective, just based off of the outcomes that we can expect, is the better option.
Yeah.
On that side. That's how I break it down.
So I mean, boy, God forbid, like Barbosa slips on a banana peel and Melisano like gets a win here. Like this lineup, I'm home pretty much.
Yeah, you're printing with that. That's that's a lineup right there.
Right, but I have to think about what I want to do with these rookies when the prices come out. I want to follow that a little bit. And I'll tell you this. I think the 2 best plays. Give me everything we said. I think the 2 best plays in GPPs. I think it's not even close. I think it's Montez and I think it's Ramirez. I think you forget the main event for a second. You take the opponent of the next 2 highest owned guys on the slate, which are going to be Hooper and McMillan. I think. Yeah. Just because I mean the steam is like pretty high.
I mean, bro, I'm getting 50% of the portfolio manager for McMillan.
Yeah,
like a lot.
So I think that you could screw around, and I'll tell you want to hear something. Okay, so you really want to go kooky? How about this? You do something similar. You find all of your lineups with check this out. Find all of your lineups with Usman, and you swap those to Ramirez. That's like, and how about this? What if you swap Hooper Usman lineups to Duplessis Ramirez lineups?
Okay.
You know,
so what are we doing here? Let's do it in portfolio manager. What are we doing?
All right. So let's find lineups with. So again, you can't. Let's find lineups with. So we're gonna find lineups with Usman. And find one with Usman that do not have Ramirez, right? Because we have to make sure they don't have him already, right?
Okay.
Usman does not have Ramirez.
Okay.
And then they also can't have Hooper. Okay. Because we're gonna swap to Ramirez. So lineups with Usman, but with no Ramirez and no Hooper, and we'll swap those to Ramirez. We'll see what those look like.
So, and this is Usman to Ramirez, right?
Yeah.
All right. Usman, we're going to remove him out for Ramirez. There he is. Oh, wait. That's right. I did the same thing I did last time. I know how to do this. All right. So we are going to lock Usman. We're going to remove Ramirez and Hooper, right?
And then swap Ramirez for Usman.
Right. So we're going to save that as an Usman swap. And then we're going to load it. There we go. Yeah, that's how we do it. And then we're going to find Usman. We're going to take him out. We're going to replace him with Ramirez. There we go. Okay. So then how many of those lineups do we want here?
I mean, they're all going to be 1% owned. So, and they're all going to have incredible leverage. Take as many as your risk tolerance will stomach. You know what I mean? Like whatever.
Okay. Let's just do 25 for now. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we'll select all of them and we'll add those
to
the export base, right?
Yeah.
So then we have all these and we'll just analyze those. So obviously 100% Ramirez, 52% Delgado, 52% Duncan.
Whatever.
Would you then on this one, if you're swapping out Usman, do you want to swap in Duplessis for one of these guys?
You can if you want to.
I mean, fuck it. Yeah, so let's then in this.
Well, which you could have done also, like I said before, if you want to make it even cleaner, you could just swap all the combination of Hooper Usman for Duplessis.
Yeah.
What's the name? Now you're saving, like, now you're leaving 400 on the table.
Okay, so we want to try to get in this set 100% Duplessis, and we're just not going to care about what we get there.
Yep.
And that one was here. All right, there we go. So then we have 48% Delgado, 44% McMillan, and all of these lineups, right, with Duplessis.
And this is the way you get like a chalky McMillan in a non-chalky lineup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and you still have all of the safety from Duplessis, and you get the direct leverage against people who are playing Usman by locking in Duplessis, and you get Mitch Ramirez against you. Like these are good GPP lineups.
Exactly. And to put a bow on the selling here, you were able to do this all with portfolio manager.
Yeah, you are. Everything that we just talked about, I showed that you can do it over here.
And I will tell you something else, and I'm gonna not to show or whatever. You cannot do this with anything else.
Let's go.
You cannot.
Go.
Well, you can do it yourself with the CSV and AI, but you can't do it on any site. I promise.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
All right. Well, that's pretty much all. This ended up being literally light years more better than I thought it was going to be. That's it. Any questions about anything that we just said? Put it in the Discord, and I strongly encourage everybody to join Pay Dirt that's not already a member.
Yeah.
To learn how to do things that pretty much nobody else in the industry is doing, which by itself gives you a good edge. Yeah, all right. See you later, my man. Take it easy.
So, bye.